So, what actually happens when one superpower tries to sue another one? Well, today we're going to dig into a pretty wild Cold War case file. This was a showdown fought not with spies or soldiers, but with, paper and ink. And here's the really cool part. The only source we're using for this whole story is the official correspondence from the International Court of Justice. It's this incredible paper trail that's going to let us watch a massive superpower confrontation unfold, literally letter by letter. Okay, so just picture the scene, right? It's 1954, the height of the Cold War. Tensions are just through the roof. And then the United States does something almost unthinkable. It decides to sue the Soviet Union. I mean, this wasn't just some political stunt. It was a direct challenge that was about to test the very limits of international law. So how do you even go about suing a superpower? Well, it turns out it all starts with a single, very formal letter. And here it is. This is the actual document that kicks the whole thing off. It's dated March 3rd, 1954, and it's from the U.S. ambassador. And just look at the language here. Sir, upon the instruction of my government, I have the honor to transmit 2 applications, instituting proceedings. I mean, it's also polite and diplomatic, right? But the action it represents, whoa, absolutely explosive. So what was this lawsuit even about? Well, the whole complaint was about a U.S. aircraft and its crew. They'd been forced to land in Hungary about 3 years earlier. So the U.S. filed 2 separate cases, one directly against Hungary, and then the really big one against its superpower patron, the Soviet Union. Okay, so the second that complaint was filed, the court's machinery just roared to life. And as this paper trail shows us, the wheels of justice started turning really, really fast. And the speed here is just incredible. I mean, listen to this. On the exact same day the application comes in, telexes are already flying off to Hungary and the USSR. The UN is immediately put on notice. And then, just 9 days later, every single UN member state is officially told, hey, just so you know, the US is taking the Soviet bloc to court. So yeah, this was definitely not some secret backroom deal. No way. By design, this was now a public, global affair. The gears were turning, and pretty much the whole world was waiting for just one thing. How on earth was the Soviet Union going to respond? Well, the world didn't have to wait very long. The answer came at the end of April. And let me tell you, it was crystal clear. And this is it. It's a short, sharp letter from the Soviet ambassador. You can see there's no legal song and dance here, no arguing about procedures. Nope, they just get straight to the point with some pretty brutal efficiency. This sentence right here is everything. The Soviets, they don't argue the facts of the case, they don't challenge the evidence. They just say, flat out, that they see no reason for the world's highest court to even look at this. It's a total and complete dismissal of the court's authority here. You know, when you boil it all down, the entire Soviet argument comes down to one single powerful word they used on their letter: unacceptable. For them, the very idea of being judged by this court was just not going to happen. Full stop. Okay, so that was the Soviet Union's response. But what about Hungary? Remember, they were also being sued. Were they going to follow the exact same playbook? Well, not quite. They decided to take a different, maybe slightly more legal-sounding path. So about 6 weeks later, Hungary's reply finally comes in. And while, yeah, they also refuse to participate, their strategy is totally different. They're not just saying no, they're actually trying to make a legal argument. So, Hungary makes a very specific legal claim. They argue that this isn't some big international incident. Oh no, they're calling it a criminal affair that happened on their own territory. And because of that, it falls under their national jurisdiction, which basically means only Hungarian courts have the right to judge it. And this is just a brilliant illustration of the 2 different strategies, right? The USSR gives a political rejection, just a flat no. But Hungary offers a legal rejection, arguing about jurisdiction. They took 2 totally different paths, but they both ended up in the exact same place, refusing to deal with the court at all. So now, with both of the defendants refusing to participate, the International Court of Justice has a big decision to make. I mean, what do you do when one side just refuses to show up to the party? And this letter from the middle of July is the final piece of the puzzle. This is the court's official order, and it brings this entire saga to a very quiet close. The court's final decision? It ordered that the cases should be removed from the list. In plain English, it was dismissed. The lawsuit was over. But the big question here is why? Why couldn't the court just move forward without them? Well, it all comes down to this really fundamental principle in international law: state consent. You see, unlike a regular court in your country that can force you to show up, the International Court of Justice's power is based on voluntary participation. It's like a referee who can only make calls if both teams agree to let them. The court can only judge a dispute if all the countries involved agree to be judged. So just look at how this whole chain reaction played out. Step 1, the US files the case. Step 2, the USSR and Hungary basically say, nope, we're not playing. Step 3, without their consent, the court has no power. So the inevitable result? Step 4, the case has to be dismissed. It really is as simple and, well, as complicated as that. So in the end, this whole paper trail shows us that this case was never really just about an airplane. It was a really stark, real-world lesson in the limits of international power. It showed that international law, as powerful as it seems, often has to bend to the will of power politics, especially when a big country can just say no. And that leaves us with a pretty heavy question, one that's just as relevant today as it was back then. If this whole system relies on everybody agreeing to participate, and any powerful nation can just decide to walk away, then what is the true power of international law?